10 in a row, 10 wins in a row. The Giants absolutely rolling. They win again tonight over the Padres. Controversy, a lot to get to. Welcome to the Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out, Corte Madera, Emeryville. 2 locations are open 7 days a week in Marin County from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And we also want to welcome our brand new sponsor, what you see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, Marin Auto Glass. My good friend Saeed, the owner of Marin Auto Glass, said, Krug, I want to be a part of the Krug Show. MarinAutoGlass.com, 415-883-3030. You're driving down the street, pebble hits the windshield, you got a crack. What do? Well, guess what? Marin Auto Glass comes out to your home and changes out your windshield, takes away the old one, puts in the new one, sweeps up the glass, and very, very convenient. 415-883-3030. And, of course, we're brought to you by New York-style Italian sausage as well. All right, the best sausage in the world, New York-style Italian sausage. People already lined up in the chat. Giants get a win over the Padres, 10 in a row, playing incredible baseball, winning rhythmically. You got to go back to 2004, the last time the Giants have won 10 in a row. It's hard to win 10 in a row in baseball. It really is. I can remember as a little kid, my dad took me when I was 12 years old to the Giants Braves in 82, and Reggie Smith for the Giants, believe it or not, the ex-Dodger and Red Sox, hit one out to left, and the Giants won 10 in a row. That was the year that the Giants, Braves, and Dodgers all went down to the final weekend of the year. Ultimately, Joe Torre, the manager of the Braves, and Ned Colletti's manager in Los Angeles, prevailed, and the Braves went to the playoffs. That was also the year the Cardinals beat them in the playoffs and wound up beating the Brew Crew, Harvey Keene's wall bangers, in one of the best World Series that I can remember in my lifetime, the 82 World Series. But I digress because we had a lot to talk about here. And Ned Colletti with us, Dan Coccimilgio with us. Guys, what can you say? I mean, before we get into the controversy, man, the Giants are just playing terrific baseball, and they didn't look this good in spring training, and they didn't look this good in April, but they have turned it around, and they have taken off, and they're playing incredible ball, and it's a mix of young and old. It's a mix of homegrown and got homegrown players and players from other organizations, and it really is incredible. They called up Casey Schmidt in first week in May. And then, 10 days later, here came Patrick Bailey. Add Luis Matos to the mix about a week ago or so. Matos had 2 more hits today. Really looking good. I don't know that Matos has ever lost a game, right, Danny? I think the Giants are undefeated in the Luis Matos era. But what can you say about the Giants? It's amazing. They're in front of the Dodgers and in front of the Padres. They're 42-32, and now starting to build up some wins at home. 21-17 at home. What were your guys' thoughts, man? It's an incredible turnaround for this Giant team.
Danny, you want to go first or second?
Danny's muted.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Ned.
Okay. All right. Here's what I see. I see a team really playing well, obviously. I think when you are playing like they're playing, you can't wait for the next game to start. It can't get here fast enough. And especially the way they've been winning late and coming back late in games. And then today, well-pitched game and kept the lead for a long time through the end. You got a shot. And you can't wait to get to the ballpark. And you're going to win. Team that they're playing today that was supposed to be off and running to 100 wins and run away with the division, they're not sure they're going to win. They don't know. They wait for something bad to happen. Giants wait for something good to happen, and they've been making it happen.
Danny, what'd you think? I mean,
Yes.
it has been an amazing turnaround when you think about April, what they did in April, where they were sub 500, and what they've done since. I mean, it's night and day. They went 11-16 in April, 17-12 in May, and what are they now? Like 14-4 in June.
I'm not sure what their June record is. I know they just won 10 in a row, and it's amazing because when you're hot, things go your way, and when you're not, things seem to go against you. Tonight they got a break at Sable was thrown out by 10 feet. It reminded me of this JT Snow 2003. Tatis threw that ball from right field 99 miles per hour, just a bullet. And Gary Sanchez, with the new rule, he had to go get the ball, but he's straddling the line. And so he left no room for Sable to go to home plate. Sable had to go wide. I think he would have been out anyway, but the rule says it was obstruction. So the run scored. It would have been the third out, makes it 2-0. And they go get 2 more runs after that, a couple more hits. And, that was the difference. They win 4-2. So they got a break. I'm not sure. That's because of the Posey rule back in 2011 when Buster got run over at the plate. And, I don't know, Ned, how do you feel about that rule? Because the catcher's got to be able to get to the ball. Does he have to get it on a short hop and possibly miss it by coming up the line? Or,
the rule obviously followed a very, very devastating injury to Buster.
right.
And so maybe it was slightly overdone at the time, and maybe it's time to adjust it a little bit. They've taken out a lot of the contact in the game. Second base, they've taken it out pretty much, taken it out at the plate, which I'm for that. I don't want to ever see anybody get hurt. But sometimes the game itself is not going to play perfectly. And so you've got to have some leeway to be able to do it. But then again, what's the rule? I guess the rule is a judgment call if it's not the way it is. It's a little tricky.
Obviously the Giants benefited from this rule tonight, but it's a weird thing. I saw the Texas catcher who got thrown out of the game. Boch got thrown out for arguing it. It's like, I understand what they're trying to do, but think about what we used to see and what we're seeing now. Let's take the Dodgers for an example. Maybe the greatest plate blocking catcher. Ned, you've seen more ball than I have, but the greatest the plate blocking catcher that I've ever seen was Mike Scioscia with the Dodgers. I thought he was absolutely incredible. He was built with a ton of weight in his butt and legs. He had huge thighs, and he would literally go into both knees on the ground in front of the plate and blocking, giving you, it wasn't like he gave you a corner or gave you an edge. Nope. He's literally blocking the plate where you either have to go over him or around him or through him. And I can remember Chili Davis going through him. I can remember Jack Clark going through him. And man, that play at the plate, guys coming around third, and here comes the throw, and the crowd, the collective gasp, and that part of the game's gone now. And I guess it's for the better. But I understood why that needed to be eradicated, because you got to give the base runner some portion of the plate. But now we've gone too far the other way. And now if you're literally just standing there in the baseline, even, it's like you have to give the runner the entire plate without the ball. And it's really kind of making catchers do this athletic, two-step, which is, it's almost like play off the plate and receive the ball, and then after you receive the ball, dive across the plate and try to make some wild stab or single-handedly sweep tag. But we've gone too far, I think. Scioscia, the way Scioscia blocked the plate was, I thought, there was no way you were going to score unless there was a collision or you somehow jumped over him or went around him. And he would do this even without the ball. Now we've got this rule where if you have any portion of you across the plate, your foot, anything, it's like obstruction, runner automatically scores. I mean, we haven't seen it decide like a World Series game or a playoff game yet that I can recall, but I fear that we're going to, and I think the public is going to push back in a huge way if this rule faces that level of national scrutiny. What do you guys think? You guys have watched a ton of ball. Ned, let's start with you because you're the executive. You've seen it all. You know how these rules come about. Have we gone too far? And I mean, it just seems like we've created something that is unfair the other way.
Yeah. I think there's got to be not necessarily a middle ground, but I think it's got to be adjusted. I think there's got to be some leeway on a play like tonight. I think there's got to be leeway because you're right. At some point in time, something crucial, some big game is going to be decided by a play like that. And, it is, I guess you could look at a replay and really kind of gauge it even better than an umpire trying to make that call. But, I'm not sure how you do it, but I think some adjustment needs to be made. You can't have catchers being run down. You can't have what happened to Buster happen again. You
Right.
can't do that. But something that will prohibit that, but also give the catcher and the defense just a little bit more leeway on a play like they had tonight.
Danny, give me your perspective. You watched a lot of ball. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Ned on that. I mean, you can't have the bulldozing anymore. Pete Rose knocked out Ray Fosse, practically ruined his game in an exhibition. He ruined his career in an exhibition game. Buster goes out for the season, and it could have derailed a great career that we may have never seen, So you can't have that. But there's got to be some judgment where the catcher has to be able to move in the best position for him to catch the ball, because a lot of times it's a bang, bang play. And if you make the catcher do something that's unorthodox to get out of the way to make a catch, he may not even be able to make the catch. So I think, just eliminate the collisions. And if the guy has the ball if it's automatic out. I mean, tonight he was out. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, I love to say it. He was out. There was nowhere for him to go. So I think you have to make a judgment call and say, yeah, he was in the line. He made Sable go wide, but I don't care if he wasn't in the line. If he still, he had plenty of time to tag him. So I think there's just got to be a little common sense, and it's, like the charging call in basketball. A lot of times it's just it's a bang bang play. It's a judgment call, and leave it up to don't leave it up to New York. Leave it up to the crew on the
field.
The
robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bad rule. I'm watching White Sox Rangers, and the White Sox were awarded a run on this play, and Steve Stone, who is one of the voices of Chicago and the former Cub and obviously the former Cub announcer, the White Sox announcer, but he's a fair-minded baseball guy as well. And, he was happy that the White Sox got a run, but he's like, I don't understand it. I don't really see it. I mean, granted, Steve played in a different era of baseball, but I think we've gone too far, and we've now created something that won't stand up to the scrutiny if a World Series game is decided on it. And to me, you've got to pretend that the biggest game with the biggest stakes is on the line. And will the public feel that your rule is equitable? And I think the public would push back in a huge way. And I think it would be a huge black mark for baseball, a huge bad PR thing for baseball. And the fact of the matter is there's 162. So in the regular season, things that aren't national narratives become huge narratives in the playoffs when everything's magnified. And I think it's just a matter of time before this gets exposed on a bad level and people start blaming the Buster Posey rule. Let's go back to the Buster Posey thing, Ned. Where were you the night that Cousins took out Posey, broke his ankle, ended his season? This is 2011. The Giants were the defending World Series champions. Where were you? What was your vantage point there?
Well, I was in L.A.
You were in LA, yeah.
I left in 06. But I remember the play, and I remember, Brian's, was furious with it. And, it was part of the game at that point in time in a way, but again, but the part of the game where you're going to lose a player for an extended period of time, that's done. That's got no part anymore, nor should it. And, but I remember it vividly from a distance.
I love Brian, and I don't know that I disagreed with him very many times in his tenure, and maybe I was a little too close to it because I did go to a wedding. My good friend Joe Delacella, who was a great Salesian Boys Club member and one of my former producer, and Scott Cousins, Nino Geritano and Scott Cousins sat at my table, and
You're hanging out with a lot of Italians. I like that, Krueger.
Yeah. I mean,
that's right.
That's right. Well, my dad used to run the Salesian Boys Club, a long time ago, and so it's like I grew up in that boys club with Fred Scolari and Russ Gumina and Randy. And so I got lots of friends there, man, and Joe Delacella was my producer at KMBR. And Joe got married, invited me to the wedding, and at my table is Scott Cousins, and so I like Scott Cousins, and I know that Scott's a good guy, and I knew he played the game right, and he it really was a bang. First of all, the old play at the plate before the rules was, if you want to call it, it was a mayhem situation, or just kind of like anything goes. It was not heavily regulated, if regulated at all, right? And Cousins, the ball got to Posey. Cousins could either slide around him or go through him, and chose to go through him. But he literally had a nanosecond to make that decision while his head's bobbing and running. And I just felt like Sabes was too harsh on that kid. And I said so. You know me, I don't hold back. I was on the radio. I said so. I said, I love Brian. I think the world of Brian. And I think Brian has gone way too far in singling out this kid and the anger that he showed towards him. And I know Scott felt bad about it, because Scott, is a good guy, but Nino Geritano felt like Sabes went too far, and Nino was sitting at the table. And, I just can remember, just a lot of people around the USF baseball program that knew Scott and were very upset with the tact that Brian used to go at him. But the Giants, it was a devastating loss for the Giants. The Giants were trying to defend their World Series championship, and they lost their best guy, and it felt, and then I remember I took a ton of heat, of course, because I went against Sabes and went against the Giants and went against, I guess, Buster, and but I just didn't feel like it was right, and it bothered me.
Might have cost him Zach Wheeler too.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sabes actually made a trade after Posey was. The interesting part about Posey going down there was the Giants played pretty good baseball after that, after Posey went down, and then Brian made the trade to send Wheeler to the Mets for Beltran, and Beltran then broke his hand, and it was almost like the Giants played over their head to compensate for losing their leader, and they were gassed. And then when Brian made that trade, it was like, hey, wait, now you guys expecting us to really, finish this thing out, and they didn't really have it. And I think the club kind of went in a tailspin, and that trade looked very, very bad in a short amount of time. But
I'm gonna go back to Cousins for a second.
Yeah,
I mean, he was not a star player. He was a guy who had to work for everything he got. And as I think back to it, he didn't break a rule.
No,
he did what was allowed. Now, and I've obviously I've known Sabes for 1,000 years, but I can understand his frustration. I would have probably said the same thing if it was Russell Martin, or something like that. But again, the Cousins, to his defense, did not break a rule. He used a rule to his advantage, which was, if the guy's in the way, you got a choice. And he took the choice that was, put him at risk to some extent as well.
And, Al Felipe brings up Ray Fosse was never the same after Rose ran over him at home plate.
All-star game.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the one difference there is that was a freaking all-star game. In a way, I respect the hell out of Pete Rose. I remember as a little boy going to a game in the mid-'70s and watching Rose walk, sprint to first, steal second, tag up, go to third, score on an overthrow. And my dad looking at me as I was, 5 years old, 6 years old, and said, "Kid, that's how you play the game." And I remembered, that was my dad didn't say things like that, and definitely not about the visiting team. So there's always been somewhat of an admiration for Pete Rose, pre-gambling, of course, and how he went about his business and played the game. And it was a take no prisoners type of an approach. Heck, Ned, when I watch that play, I think, but that was a freaking all-star game. What the heck? Now it's like if you did that, both teams would attack you. But then I look at other plays in the game. Hal McRae used to take out second baseman. Now, granted, I mean, he would follow you to the outfield grass and take you out.
He left his feet as he got to second base.
Right. And I can only imagine. Now, none of us were old enough to see Ty Cobb, but something tells me that Ty Cobb probably played that way.
Danny, you didn't see Ty Cobb?
Not live. Danny, you muted yourself.
Yeah, I just missed him by a couple years.
Yeah. Danny's first year watching was Ty's last year in the league, and he just didn't want to see him.
The Spikes Up, that was Ty, wasn't it? Spikes Up.
No interleague games, so
what do you think, Ned? I mean, in some ways, I miss those days of, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We're playing for keeps. I feel like we see that level of intensity in the NHL, a sport that you follow very closely. They're playing for keeps every night. I don't see anybody kind of patting each other on the butt and going, "Hey, good game. See you in Vancouver in a few weeks." These guys are taking out their dentures and brawling, and
it's great if you're watching it, but if you're playing shortstop and getting spiked, I've been spiked before. It isn't fun.
I'd ask Kipe about it, right? Didn't Kipe have a knee taken out by somebody at second base as a young player?
A lot of those guys had all kinds of things. I mean, that was like a worse intersection, going through an intersection and just praying that nobody else is going to run the light. It's like, it was bad back then. I mean, you were taught, take them out. Because we don't want the double play and whatever. I mean, remember Will Clark and Ozzie Smith in the playoffs there, and that was mild compared to what some of the guys used to do.
To me, it's like if you're trying to rule against Sosha planning his thick lower body on the entirety of the plate, and I get it, I'm with you, but if a guy's just standing on the plate, I don't know. I don't think I can call obstruction there. I mean, I don't care if he's got the ball or not. So if he doesn't have the ball, he can't be blocking any portion of the plate, and we're really going to award the plate to the base runner. I think that's going too far. The Giants bullpen has been a big story as well. Tonight they used the opener. Walker went 1 inning, walked 2, struck out 1. Then they went to Jelly. Jelly had that curveball looking phenomenal tonight. 6'11" righty, went 4 shutout. Great kid. I talked to him in spring training. He's from the University of Kentucky, and young man with a young wife and a young baby, and just he's just a really easy guy to root for. I thought he was probably the biggest hero tonight with 4 shutout, 5 strikeouts. Then Rogers, then Jackson, then Rogers, then Doval. And Doval's money, he's got a 1.87 ERA. Tyler's got a 1.77 ERA. Luke Jackson, great pickup, 2.16 ERA. Ned, what do you think of this Giant bullpen? Because if you had asked me in spring, do the Giants have a dominating pen? I'd say no way. And yet it's been dominating.
There is, I don't know if there's as much analytics as there is. I don't know if there's a study out there that can predict the bullpen's performance really month to month almost. And I know it's a lot. Obviously, it's talent, it's short memory, but I also think it's like getting that momentum and getting in that groove. There's no other really group. Maybe your starting pitchers, but they don't always necessarily sit together during a game. When you think about it, this is a group that sits together during the game, walks out to the bullpen together, walks back at the end of the game together. And as you start to gain some momentum and some success, guys pass the baton to the next one. And I think that's what you're seeing. And it gets contagious. Just as teams with poor bullpens, that gets contagious. Nobody can get anybody out. Next guy comes in, he can't throw a strike. Next guy comes in, he can't get anybody out. But when you're going good, different things can happen. Again, it's a month-to-month deal for me. You could predict all you want. It's tough to do, except for maybe the closer position, where you have a little bit more. If you got the right one, you got more predictability than any other piece in that bullpen. But it's tough to get to this point. They've done a great job of putting it together, and really the confidence. You can see the confidence in this team. As I said at the outset of the show, the game starts, they know they got a really good chance to win. They got confidence going in. Bullpen mirrors that.
What do you think of the opener? Do you like the opener?
I really don't like the opener. If in the good old days of yesteryear, if you had a starting pitcher go an inning, you'd be going, what are we gonna do tomorrow? And so, but having an extra person on your roster, 26, certainly helps you there a little bit. The leagues seem to be a little bit more easy going on the IL. So you got more people you can rotate in and out. I don't know. I get it, but I don't necessarily like it. Even going back to the playoffs a few years ago, Wade Miley made 3 starts in the LCS, I think, and hardly pitched an inning. Some of them.
Right.
I was thinking, why would we be doing this? You're trying to get 2 outs before before the first inning's over, and you're going into your somebody else. I think some of that's overdone.
Danny, are you an opener fan? What do you think of the opener?
I'm mixed on it. I see why they do it, but I prefer a starting pitcher. I mean, to me, Jelly went 5 tonight, roughly
4, I think, wasn't it?
Whatever he went. Why not just start him? I mean, and then use the bullpen guy behind it. I think they use it to try and throw off the other manager. It's like, okay, I've got this righty going. I'm going to put my lineup this way. And, it happened to the Dodgers a few years ago in the World Series. Or playoffs or World Series, they kind of tricked Roberts at the last minute. They changed starters on him. And, I don't even know if that should be allowed. They had to announce the starter. Roberts made his lineup, and then I can't remember who it was. I don't remember if it was Tampa Bay or if it was in the NLCS, but they threw a reliever out there, and next time they did it, Roberts kind of he altered his lineup. He didn't throw in all righties or all lefties, whatever. He altered it. So if they pulled that shenanigan again, so I see why they do it, but to me, it's just weak. I don't really care for it.
The only thing I think is the psychology to it.
Yeah.
If you've got a relief pitcher that you don't trust in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, who's got some good stuff, but the lights are too bright at that point in time, you want to use them in the first? Well, maybe. You're going to need 3 outs at some point in time from him, and if the 7th, 8th, 9th inning is a crapshoot because the courage isn't there at that point in time, then I guess maybe you figure out a way to get him in the game early where he can relax a little bit and do what he can do. But
I look at it like, if you have the right personnel, like for me, you look at Julian Tavares with the Tribe in the mid '90s. Eventually, he came over to the Giants. The guy had awesome stuff, and his stuff was really, really good. And I don't know if I would trust him in the high leverage innings, but you know what? If I had a guy like that, I'd start him. Rubber arm guy with great stuff, who's maybe going to get some ground balls. I also like it if you feel like you've got somebody behind him that throws from the other hand. And, if maybe you can steal the momentum of a game. Some teams have terrible records playing from behind. If you feel like you can jump a team by silencing them in the first couple innings, maybe they don't do well against lefties and you've got a lefty you want to use as an opener. So you're playing from a lead. I could see there being different mental games you could play with that opener. I don't mind it. I just don't love it as a regular usage type of a thing. Ned's here, so we definitely want to get some questions for Ned. Danny's asking me what time do I want to go to as far as this goes. We'll go till 11 o'clock here, and then Danny, we're going to switch to Danny's channel at 11 o'clock. But
Okay.
we'll go with some questions right here for Ned, and I've got a few of them that I've highlighted here, and we'll see if Ned at the end. Ned, you may, after you see some of these questions, you may be like, I maybe don't want to go with questions from now on. But here we go. All right. I'm just saying. Okay, here we go. This was a rumor from senior softball games. Ned, do you think the Giants could get Lucas Giolito with Joey Bart and two mid-tier young arms?
I think they could, if that's the best offer out there.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll be the best. I mean, he's going to be one of the premier starting pitchers if he's available. He'll be one of the best ones out there. And he's got courage to him. So, if that's all they can get, yeah, that may work. But again, it doesn't make much. It's all conjecture at this point in time because nobody knows what the offer is going to be.
We got another one here from Will Martinez. Ned, who are your top 5 least favorite GMs to deal with? I told you.
Do I have to name them, or do I have to just give the quality? How about if I give the qualities?
Well, first of all, did you have GMs that you did not like to deal with, period? Oh, you don't have to name them.
There were 3 or 4, and so did Sabes.
Yeah.
And I always got those people, and then when I became the GM, Kim In got those people.
So you're still dealing with them, and you still want to flesh out what they want or what they're thinking about, but you yourself. Well, let me ask you this. What personality type made a GM your least favorite GM? Was it a line of questioning, or was it like a rude guy who got real to the point, or was it
probably 2 things?
Yeah, what pissed you off?
Somebody you couldn't trust. You couldn't trust to lead you, have you walk down an aisle to get to a deal, and then you figure out they got no interest. They were just wasting your time, or playing with the medical. The medical has changed and it's now files, but there was a guy that didn't put all the medical in a file about 5 years ago and got in trouble for that. What it is teams build their IL lists, who's in for treatment, this and that. If you're going to make a deal, the trainer from the other team can call the trainer of the team with the player and get a copy of the file and decide. And teams can, have been known to doctor that. So it's really a trust level that you don't feel comfortable. And even there's a couple that even though you could trust them, they always had to win the deal. You can't do business like that. You can't always try to win the deal. Refuse to do a deal because you're not coming out ahead decidedly for the media or for your ownership or whatever judgment you're being ruled against or put up against. But there was groups you could probably check my record and you could probably come up with 2 or 3 guys that we never made a deal with. It was impossible to make a deal.
How about if a guy talked a lot in the media? Like a guy like Jim Bowden really talks a lot. He's now in the media, and maybe he's best in the media because it seemed like the Reds were always rumored into things. Did you not want to deal, not specifically with Bowden, but did you not want to deal with guys who kind of talked a big game? They were always finding cameras and finding microphones.
Yeah, you had to be real careful with that. I think we've talked previously on a show, maybe months and months ago. there weren't too many things we did that got out early. Very small group, very tight knit group. And when you have somebody on the other side that, again, you're trusting with information, and they decide that they're gonna, let it out to rile up your clubhouse or to upset a player or things like that. That's like blocking the plate. I guess. So, not good. But there was a guy like Jimmy Hendry, Walt Jocketty, Doug Melvin, Brian Cashman, Theo. You knew right away. We always had small talk. We always checked in with each other to see what was going on. But you knew. I mean, the best was probably Jimmy Hendry at that. There was no nonsense. There was no BS on either side. We knew within a minute or two if we had something to talk about, and if we had a true interest in getting it done. There was no waste of time. There was no gamesmanship. It was just, yeah, you can, or no, you can't, and off you went. But and there were more than that little group I just mentioned. But there were a few that were impossible to deal with, especially those that had to win the deal. These are professionals.
Have you ever gotten angry enough at a GM that you're literally screaming at them?
No, I had one GM scream at me because I wouldn't take a veteran player who could no longer even DH, and was a great player in a previous era almost. And the GM just, he was frustrated. He couldn't, guy wanted to play for a contender. And I says, I got no interest. And he started screaming. I says, you know what? I says, you can keep screaming, but you'll be screaming into the dial tone. And that's how it went. I also got a call one time from Nolan Ryan, which was, it was, I watched Nolan pitch probably his whole career. But somebody that I had tremendous respect for. And he showed up on my cell phone, and and he was trying to get me to take, I think it was Roy Oswald, who was near the end of his career and was looking for one more shot at the postseason. I'm pretty sure it was Roy. And I just said, hey, in all due respect, I can't do that. I still got his phone number, but
Do you ever have a fan figure out your either your cell or your line, either with the Giants and Dodgers, and you answered your phone and it was actually a fan?
Oh, maybe one time or two. I can't. Yeah. I don't, maybe. I just say maybe because, it's a possibility. You can never say never, but yeah, not too often. There was a story of a former GM who's deceased now. Going back, he was a GM and I was cutting my teeth, and it was a call-in show in the wintertime. And a fan knew that that this guy didn't pay attention to the minor leagues. And this guy went through 4 or 5 names and got the GM's opinion on when they would be ready to the playoffs. To get to the big leagues and how good they were going to be, and if they had a chance to make the club. And the 4 or 5 names were all his buddies.
Oh,
They
no.
weren't even major league players, but the GM just kept going on and on. Well, this guy can really throw, and this guy's got great stuff. And,
what do you think of Dan Coccimilgio? I mean, he's a really fast second baseman, and he's in Double-A right now, Ned. But do you think he'll make it up by the end of the year? I think Danny's got a great glove, and he moves well.
He's got to keep doing podcasts.
Here we go. Chardall, Danny? Should we go Chardall?
Question or?
Yes, Ned. Who are your top 5 San Francisco Giants of all time?
Oh goodness, during my era, so to speak, during my time there.
Yeah.
All right, that's how I'll do it. All right, let me give you the top 5, and then I'll. If you want me to put them in order, I'll put them in order. But
if any of these guys never played for the Giants, that'll be bad news.
I think I'm gonna get them in my head. I think I'm gonna nail. I'm gonna do them in my head. See if I get them right with you.
Okay, you got to be honest with me, Danny.
I will. Let me think. I know who's won.
Well, let's talk about your tenure. It was 1996.
No,
90.
94.
5?
End of 94, I got there.
94. Okay, so 94 through 2003?
5.
5. Okay.
Kirk Reeder comes to mind immediately. One of my favorite people. Did you have Kirk Reeder on your list?
No.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Robbie Nen.
I may have gotten to him. I'm only on 2. I'm going top to bottom.
Okay, well, I'm not going necessarily.
Okay.
So Kirk Reeder, Rob Nen.
Boy, I got too many to name. I'm having a hard time.
I got 4 in my head right now.
Barry.
Yeah.
Barry and I had a rough first year. Barry wouldn't say hello, and I told him, and then he got me in spring training, and he says, how come you never say hello to me? I said, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not that tall, but I'm not invisible. I tried saying hello to you 4 or 5 times, and from then on, he was great. Far better than people give him credit for. He didn't want people to know that he could be a good guy and that he was charitable and he had a big heart. A guy I loved how he played, Jeff Kent.
Yeah, I have him on there.
Oh, yeah. As a GM, you ask yourself, and John Scherholtz kind of reconfirmed this to me when I got the GM gig. I asked John, I said, so give me one thing that you live by. And he said, I always ask myself, can I trust a player? Not to watch your house. It's not necessarily your top starter, your worst starter. It could be your 25th man. It could be your 26th man. Somebody sitting in the minor leagues trying to get to the show at that stage, and when the Rascals were 25. And there was never a moment that I didn't trust Jeff Kent. I knew that it was all in all the time, through sickness, through injury, whether it was in San Francisco, where we spent a lot of good years together, and even in LA, where he played his last games when I was there. So somebody to me, really, really special.
You got one more.
Oh boy, I don't want one more.
No.
I can't. It's tough for me to do one more. Well, I can. I'll get 2.
I would guess. I was going to guess Bill Miller because he joined you in L.A.
Okay, I'll take Billy Miller. But it's hard for me, and that's, I guess, shows you. I guess.
Or here's the other one. I was thought you were going to say maybe Joe Carter, because I know you were close
always
to
just
Joe.
here for a short period of time.
I thought you might say JT Snow.
Well, see, I mean, you're right. None of these people, shouldn't be on a list.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, but it's a credit, I think, to my time there. Not that I had anything to do with it, but just the people that we had, that you became close to, that you couldn't wait to see years later. Like I was up in San Fran. I'm trying to think, maybe they may have done a 20-year anniversary for the 1997 team. And I went up there and spent, a couple days and seeing, Richie Rodriguez, seeing, Sean, who I had in Chicago as a rookie and who I signed long-term there and had hired him 2 or 3 times in San Francisco as a player, as a coach. But so many people that come to mind that were just, we did some cool stuff there. We played in a ballpark that was like playing in Alcatraz, at Candlestick, with no idea if we'd ever have a new ballpark. And ownership rallied, figured it out. Larry and Peter did all this great stuff along with Larry Nibby and all that ownership group, and really did great stuff.
Love Larry Nibby. Great man. Man.
And then we went there, and I spent, I think, when I spent 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I spent 5 years at Candlestick and 6 at Pac Bell and then SBC, I think, for a minute. I'm not sure when AT&T came into it, but it was the most unique time of my career, and I'll never forget it. I'm coming up in August for a big ceremony. They've invited me up.
Nice. What are they honoring?
Well, I don't know if they've announced it yet. So
okay. Don't give it away. But you'll be there. You'll be there in August.
Yeah, and I just, I turned the team down the first time they asked. Bob Quinn and Sabes, Tony Siegel, who I just had dinner with a week ago, was leaving to go to Colorado. I don't know how much of this stuff you guys all want to hear. I mean, you can you can go to commercial anytime you want. But I had, Tony was leaving. Tony was the number 3 person in the organization on baseball. Bob Quinn, GM, Brian, assistant GM, Tony, baseball operations leader, director. And he was going to Colorado. And they asked him, give us a guy to replace you. And so he gave them my name, and they called me. And I went down to the GM meetings in Scottsdale, and I met with Bob. And it was at the end of the strike. I mean, the strike was still going on. It was November of '94. No World Series in '94. Still playing a Candlestick. The fans weren't supporting the team necessarily. They almost had gone to Tampa Bay a couple years earlier. All these things, and I went there for a 2-day interview, and we're driving out of Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix, and Bob offers me the job before we get off the premises. And I thought, this is a little desperate on their end. We haven't even talked. And so we talked. I said, why don't we just keep talking about it for another day? I mean, we got time. It was a Saturday. Brian wasn't coming in until Monday. So we went to lunch. We went to dinner. We had a lot of different conversations, Bob and I. And I called him Saturday night from my room, and I said, I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go to San Francisco. And I couldn't finish the sentence. He goes, great. We really need you. Congratulations. No. You got to let me finish the sentence. I said, I'm going to fly to San Francisco tomorrow on my own. And I'm going to get a real estate agent. And I'm going to see what it's going to cost me to live on a peninsula or in the East Bay. I have no idea. All I know is it's far more expensive than Chicago was. And so he goes, you're really going to do that? I says, yeah. And he goes, why don't you just take the job? And I says, you're hiring me. You want me to be a detail-oriented, I'm assuming, right? You got to know all the rules. You got to negotiate. You got to do all these things. Well, of course. I said, wouldn't you want me to be detail-oriented in my own life? And he says, I respect that. So I flew up, made no appointments with any real estate people, got to SFO, dialed Century 21 or whoever was, in the phone book. Remember the phone book, Danny?
Yeah.
And nobody would answer the phone. Dialing place after place after place. And it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And what time do 49er games start? 1 o'clock.
1.
Yeah.
Okay. The Cowboys were playing at the Stick against, right when those two teams were like the two best in that conference. And
this is 94.
Yes.
94.
And I couldn't, and you can tell that whatever that date is, because that was what was going on at the Stick, I think. And I finally found, a husband and wife that weren't football fans. I met them, at the little hotel I decided to book, and they took me around to East Bay. Next day, I met them again, took me around the peninsula, and I couldn't afford to do it. I had family too. My family's going to come out there. And so I fly back on Monday morning or Monday night. I did the peninsula on Sunday. I did the East Bay on East Bay on Sunday and peninsula on Monday. And Don Zimmer, who had coached for the Giants and the late Roger Craig, he was a dear friend till he passed. And so he gave me some ideas of where to look. Foster City, San Mateo, places like that where a lot of players had lived. And I fly back to Phoenix, and I'm not going to be able to take the job. I can't do it. And Bob and Brian picked me up. And, Brian and I had both been in the game for a while, not as long as Bob. And Brian had been a Yankee for a long time. I had been a Cub for a long time. And we weren't the type of people. Sometimes when you go to GM meetings, people are always looking for their next gig. So they're always glad handing everybody and, slapping everybody's back and, hey, how you doing? And all. And Sabes never did that. And I never did that. So we'd find ourselves having a light conversation once in a while. But nothing, not trying to get, me trying to go to the Yankees or him trying to come to the Cubs, especially in that era. But, it's really the first time we ever spent any time together. And we went out to a little restaurant called Pishke's, about a block from Scottsdale Stadium. And we walk in, and Terry Francona is sitting at the bar. and Terry Francona was managing in the fall league. It's maybe been Michael Jordan's year in the fall league. And I see Terry, who I'd been with 1 year in Chicago. And he goes, Ned, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm talking to these guys about a job, And he goes, you got to hire this guy. Pay him whatever he wants. You got to hire this guy. He's one of the best guys you'll ever find. And I hadn't told Bob or Brian I wasn't going to do it. And so we all talk, and then we go sit in the booth, and they go, so what do you think? What do you think? I said, I can't do it. And so they offered me like $5,000 more. I said, I appreciate that, but I'm not even close. I can't. I'll be going from a nice house into a little apartment, with a wife and 2 kids. How am I going to do this? And so I said no. So we went to the Sugar Bowl. I'm sure you've been to the Sugar Bowl, right?
The Sugar Bowl?
Yeah.
You're not talking about
That's the Sugar Bowl. A little.
Oh, okay. Danny's maybe been.
Yeah, you been to a crew? Come on.
No, never.
Oh, geez. So we go over there, and now I got a red eye to go back to Chicago. And they're like,
I've been to the Indian gaming casinos in Scottsdale. I've been there, Dan.
You're not going back tonight? I says, yeah, I'm going back tonight. I got nothing more to tell you. I can't do this. So we get to Sky Harbor. I'm taking a red eye back to Chicago, and shake Bob Quinn's hand and thank him for everything. And Sabes gets out, and he goes, I got to figure out a way to get you here. I said, Sabes, I can't afford to move my family there. But I love to do it. Yeah, but I don't know how I can do this. And he goes, let me work on it. So 2 days go by, and he calls me. And the United Center had just opened, and I was at an event at the United Center. And he calls me, and he says, what if we did this? What if for the first year, you can try it out, we'll try it out. You spend 1 week a month in San Francisco on our dime. You're with the big league club 1 week a month on the road. You're in the minor leagues 1 week a month on our dime. And 1 week a month, you're back in Chicago with your family. You don't have to move here. We'll figure this out. We'll see how it goes. And I said, I'll do that. So I did that the first year, got to the draft, actually got halfway through the year, got to the draft.
This was so your first day with the Giants was 1994?
Yeah, look, someday in November. I think Thanksgiving week in November.
So it was after the season in 94?
Oh, yeah.
After the strike. Okay.
That was
strike was still going on.
Yeah.
That's right. But because they didn't
went into 95.
We had replacement players in 95. But by the time I got to the All-Star break, my respect for Brian and back and forth was so strong, and I loved the group. Dick Tidrow, I knew from my Cub days. He pitched there with us, and the scouts. He came to me after the draft and he says, "What if I can, get you a 2-year deal and get you more money and give you a living allowance and you could rent a place out here and this and that?" I said, "Let's do it." And so I signed a couple-year deal for 96 and 97, and before spring training in in spring training of 96, Bob Quinn announced he was going to retire at the end of the season. And Brian and I were at Indian School Park, minor league games, spring training. And Peter came over, took us for a walk. And he says, Bob's going to retire at the end of the year. Brian, I want you to be the GM. And then I want you to be the assistant GM. And I know you've been commuting back and forth in this, I want to help you to set some roots down in San Francisco, however we can do that. And so I ended up buying a place in Foster City, and
the rest is history. It
was such a special time in my career, in my life. And I don't say that because I'm on a podcast that originates out of the Bay Area. And LA was great, and the Cubs, my hometown, were great. But the San Francisco thing was so unique because we came from so far down. The team in 95 and 96, you could look it up, lost 90 plus games.
Yeah, I remember it. I was there. I went to a wedding in Chicago in September of 96. And my relatives had told me, hey, when you come out here, the Giants will be here for a 3-game series. And we got tickets to all 3 games. And so I saw 3 Giants Cubs games in September of 96. And that team had Rick Wilkins behind the plate, Kim Batiste at third base, a young Rich Aurelia. And it was not a good team. I mean, it was not a good team. And by 97, that team won the division. So it was an incredible turnaround. We got
that 96 team was so bad. We ran out of players with a week to go. We had no players left.
Oh, I can remember it.
You guys ran, six. I think Steve Scarsoni was the last.
Enrique Burgos and all kinds of guys. Chris Hook.
Enrique Wilson.
Yeah, Desi Wilson.
That
was
another
it Desi
guy,
Wilson?
Desi Wilson. No, Enrique Wilson, infielder.
Okay.
We go to call up another kid. We're going into the instructional league to call players up.
Oh my goodness.
That's true. The instructional league, you run through everybody. And there was a young player named Tim Flores who had just left to come back. I think he lived in LA. We had about 6 games to go. And reports where he could play the infield, he could help you defensively. But we call to get Jack Hyatt, whoever was running the instruction league, to put Tim Flores on. He just left yesterday. We go back to LA. He's done with the camp. No cell phones. I call his house in LA. Oh, he's driving back. He should be here, tomorrow or something. Maybe taking a long way from Phoenix to LA. Anyway, like a day and a half, 2 days go by. Well, we're losing every night, but we're playing short. So we end up calling up Enrique Wilson. And about 6 hours after Enrique Wilson reports, Tim Flores calls. Hey, what do you guys need? Huh. Well, nothing anymore. We needed you in the big leagues, And he never made it. He never made it. But that's
how would you like to have that story? I missed the big leagues as I took a detour from Phoenix to Mexico before I went home.
I had a wonderful time there. But I was reluctant to go at the beginning, and I've missed it a lot since I've left. And I don't know who wanted Zito, Brian or Peter. I was in LA trying to figure out how to beat the Giants when that deal happened.
Yeah. You're muted, Larry.
There we go. Jacob.
I went too long there, everybody. I don't know.
Calba Kamiga says Jacob
Cruz
was in 96. Here we got a couple more here. Chardall wants to know your top 5 Dodgers of all time. I don't know. We can go with that. Here's one. Al Felipe. Ned, who's got better Italian food, L.A. or San Francisco?
San Francisco. That's far easier than picking my favorite 5 Giants.
Yeah.
It's hands down. My spot in North Beach, Sodini's. If I had dinner in downtown San Francisco 500 times, 475 were at Mark Sodini's spot on Grant and Green.
Here's one for you. Do you have more regrets trading for or non-tendering A.J. Pierzynski? Because if you remember, he did go on in 2005 to catch the White Sox, and I'm sure you had some people in Chicago who reminded you of that. And that was one of the greatest postseason pitching staffs ever, and A.J. really was magical that year for Ozzie Guillen. There's no question.
No doubt. It was probably Sabes' worst deal. Joe Nathan left, Bonzer left, Francisco Liriano left. We didn't have a catcher though. And so we were, you can no matter what you're negotiating, anything you're negotiating, when you're in a point of desperation because you don't have something you desperately need, you're in a bad spot. And that's what happened to us. AJ turned out to be, he was an excellent catcher in Minnesota. We just weren't the right place at the right time for him. Then we had to arbitrate with him, ended up losing a case, but the whole experience of arbitration didn't fit well with him. It was just tough. He and I actually got inducted into the Chicago Sports Hall of Fame on the same night, 2 October. So we talked about it all and, reminisced a little bit. I tried signing him in LA too.
Did you?
Oh yeah, he was within a night of saying yes. His agent let me. We negotiated with the agent, but he knew I knew AJ, so we had conversations, and he says, let me sleep on this. I'm going to a basketball game tonight, and I'll call you in the morning. I'm not going to call you to get more money. I'll call you with the decision. So you wake up in the morning. He's in Florida. I'm on the West Coast. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the Orlando area. I call the agent. The agent says, we've had a change in plans, and AJ feels he wants to be the one to tell you. So AJ calls. I said, what's up? He goes, so I'm ready to take the deal and ready to become a Dodger. And I go to the Orlando Magic game last night. And who are they playing? But the Chicago Bulls. And who's the owner of the Chicago Bulls? Mr. Jerry Reinsdorf, who also owns the White Sox. I ran into him at the game. He goes, how come we haven't signed you yet? And he says, well, I'm about to become a Dodger. And Jerry apparently says, what are they paying you? He says, X number of dollars for 1 year. He goes, I'll pay you the same for 2. You got to tell me right now. He goes, all right, I guess I'm staying in Chicago.
Wow. You've worked with a lot of great managers. I personally think Don Zimmer was one of the smart baseball people. He managed the 89 Cubbies.
Yep.
Obviously Joe Torre, Dusty, Felipe. I mean, these are very, very bright baseball people.
Yes.
Who would you say you got? And I really want to get your thoughts on the hum baby, Roger Craig, who I really believe that Roger and Al Rosen, you guys ushered the team from, the 90s into the new ballpark, and it doesn't get built without you guys. But the whole thing doesn't really turn around without Al Rosen in 87 and Roger Craig's positivity. It was almost like good cop, bad cop. Roger was the guy that everybody loved. He was lovable. Rosen was the hammer. He was the heavy. He would overturn the spread. What can you share with us about those two men? And I don't know how much, if you even know them, but Roger Craig was a genius. And I'm trying to explain to people that Roger Craig in that, when he first came to the Giants in 87, every time he pitched out, somebody was going. I mean, the guy stole signs better than almost anybody I can ever remember. I can remember some incredible Cardinal Giant games where Whitey's Cardinals with all that speed and Roger neutralized the entire thing just by pitching out at opportune times. What can you share with us about those two guys? And I don't know if they ever came back when you and Brian were running the show, if you ever had any dialogue with either of them, but I feel like those two guys had a huge, huge hand in taking this team to where it is today.
They, I got a lot of thoughts on it. I knew Roger fairly well because of Zim, and I got to know him.
They were Dodgers together.
Yes, and Zim coached for him.
That's right. That's right.
And Al, I would see a little bit in spring training after he retired from the Giants. What I give them a ton of credit for, and I mentioned this on one of our last couple shows in the last 10 days. When I watched this Giants team play, and I think about the teams that I was with, there was a grit to those teams. They used the candlestick weather to their advantage. They didn't get down about it. They let the visiting team get down about it. Same thing at AT&T, Pac Bell, Oracle Field, whatever we want to call it today. Oracle Field, we call it. There was this spirit to it. And I think it goes back to the Roger Craig, Al Rosen teams. When I think about those teams, the first player I think about is Robbie Thompson.
Yeah.
Thompson.
Hard-nosed.
Hard. Every day. He wouldn't be the guy rounding third looking for a clean path to home plate.
No.
And I think that's that is, and Matty Williams and other guys too. I mean, they had a team that you wondered, how do they do this year in, year out, game in, game out? But that's what they did. And they played to the person. They had a genius. Bill Walsh gets a ton of credit in the Bay Area. genius at football, and that's one of your fortes, Larry. Would you say he was, upper
Yes.
echelon in thought
No,
process?
no doubt. No
Okay.
doubt.
In a quieter way and without the Super Bowls to tie to it or World Series championships, Roger Craig wasn't far behind. Different personality, quieter, but really a bright tactician. Talking about a guy that lost a lot of games in the big leagues with the New York Mets when they were just getting going. He had to pay attention, and he always paid attention, and you always knew that this team was going to be they weren't going to make many mistakes. And if you took your eye off it or you took your concentration away, the game would be over. You'd have no chance. And that's what they created. And then we had a little bit of a rough go. 93 team, I was still in Chicago when they won 103 and then get in. And 94 was the strike shortened season. I think Straw was with you guys then. And 95 and 96, we were terrible. Trying to build it, had to trade one guy, Matty or Barry, which is a whole nother story as to
I love the 94 team when they got Straw. They were running down the Dodgers. They would have run them down. You had Strawberry, Matt Williams, and Barry Bonds all in the same lineup, and it was
left, right, left.
It was amazing. And the Giants were eating up that Dodger lead. They were going to go right on by.
Yeah. So, but a lot of great, my fondest memories. I mean, I have a million of them, but many of them are in the Bay Area. So many good times.
We're going to do Danny a solid. Danny's getting his channel, NorCal Sports Network, rolling, and we're going to move this show over there. I'm going to join the mix. I've got Cyrus coming in for a little Warrior preview in a minute or two, in a few minutes. But let's go one more here with Robert Rothberg. But Ned and Danny are going to jump over, and I'm going to join them. Robert Rothberg says, I have a question for Ned. Why is it that the analysts always have a lack of confidence in the Giants? Also, why isn't Kapler receiving more recognition? I always felt like this was part of how Dusty was the manager of the year so many times, is that, the old saying, if your premise is wrong, your conclusion by definition will be wrong. And the premise was that all those teams that he managed in San Francisco had no talent, and that it was Dusty. And I think Dusty's a very, very good manager. Ned, we've talked about it. This guy's a great motivator. And from the last pitch of the game to the first pitch of the next day, I mean, this guy can keep a team together over the 162 like very, very few men. He's a great leader. But I always felt like nobody appreciated Bill Miller. Nobody understood the value of Rich Aurelia. Nobody thought much of Jeff Kent. Nobody thought much of the talent that you guys put together. And so it was like, we're going to pick them fourth. Oh, they won it all? Well, it can't be the talent. It must be the manager of the year. And that's kind of the way that award works. Nothing against Dusty, but I just feel like the analysts always didn't appreciate the Giants. And that, what Robert is referring to there, happens in some ways to this day. Why is it, you think, that the Giants get overlooked by the national, the national magazines, the national, media? It doesn't seem like, it's very, very rare that the Giants are picked to win.
You got a 3-hour time difference to begin with. You got a lot of power.
They're not watching.
Actually, you got it. You got a lot of power on the Eastern Seaboard. Analysts, people who make decisions, what's on the air, what's on ESPN, what's on the MLB network. You've got a lot of people that are East Coast biased or just live out there. So you're starting from behind. You may read about it, but you don't necessarily see it. And I think the Giant teams, going back to the Roger Craig, Al Rosen years, I think they are really talented, but they are and I may get this saying wrong, the sum of the parts type of thing. How they play together and what they do together. Even this team with Gabe that Gabe's got going here. Do they have one of the 5 greatest players in the game on this team? No. They're really making it with guys that play hard, fight to win. And that's, unless you watch teams like that, unless you watch them, you don't really know how good they are. You can look at, the numbers, this and that. People. I can tell you right now, people on the East Coast have no idea how good the catcher is, or how good the shortstop, third baseman is, or how good the Matos is going to be. They read about it, and they may glance at it, but they don't pay attention to it. And the Giant teams for the last 40 years, pretty good run for 40 years, a little down here and there, but hardly any compared to most franchises. They are a product of the compilation of the people that play for them, and the people that run them, and the people that own them, and the people that manage them and coach them.
Do you know Kapler?
I know him a little bit. Yeah, I offered him a job years ago.
What's your assessment of him?
I think he's getting better. I think he was. I think he's been a smart, aggressive personality to begin with, but I think the game was fast for him for a while, certainly in Philly, and then he came here, and Farhan knew him and trusted him with this organization, and I think he's learned a lot. I think when you stop learning in the game, you're done. And I think, and I haven't talked. I think I talked to Gabe maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Last time I talked to him, but I think he's learned a lot, and I think that there's less bravado and more substance to what he does, and the players certainly this year relate to it. Because again, how many All-Stars do you have on the Giants right now?
Well, that's the thing. Maybe Doval, maybe Estrada, but you're right. They don't have a lot of big names. They don't have a lot of names that people know.
They don't have Mookie Betts. They don't have Freddie Freeman. They don't have Clayton Kershaw. They don't have those. They don't have Fernando Tatis. They don't have Machado. They don't have those guys. Bogart. They don't have those guys. But yet, you look at their record, and you look how they play, and I think that's my best answer to that question.
Ned, we appreciate you. You're going to go over to Danny's channel. I'm going to do a couple minutes with Cy on the draft tomorrow, and then I'm going to join you guys for a few. Danny's building up his channel. Danny, let me bring Danny back in. Danny, does Ned have your?
Yeah, I sent the link to both you guys, your emails.
Okay, so I'll let you guys go, and we'll see you over at Danny's channel in a few minutes.
All right, I'll be in there in 1 minute or so.
Sounds good.
See you there in a minute. Bring some questions.
Ned, awesome stuff, man. And we'll talk to you in a few more minutes over at Danny's.
You got it.
Appreciate you. All right, Ned Colletti. Let's do this. We're going to bring in Cy right now and talk a little Warrior basketball. Draft coming up tomorrow. We want Cyrus's thoughts. Let's see. Let me just send a note to him. What we're going to do is I'm going to play the commercials that we normally play at the end of the show. I'll play them right here. And then when we get back from the commercials, Cy will be with us, and we'll talk a little Warriors. And then I'll jump back over with Danny and Ned over on Danny's channel and continue a little more baseball dialogue. But we are brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage, Telmetrics, and Pig and a Pickle. Check out Pig and a Pickle 7 days a week in Marin County. They're open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday in Corte Madera. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California.
A Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. How can you go to church if you don't believe in God? And along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, welcome back to the Krug Show as we go from a Giants baseball discussion with the orange background, and now at just a touch of a button like that, we're talking Warriors.
Nice.
We're talking Warriors. And Cy Satsis is here, and we're we don't want to burn too much of Cy's time, but we teased this. We definitely wanted to have Cy on. For those of you who want to continue the baseball discussion, people are saying, well, where is Danny's channel? Danny's channel is NorCal Sports Network. NorCal Sports Network. So definitely head over to Danny's channel. And here we go. I'll put it on the screen for you guys. Senior softball game says Dan's channel is NorCal Sports Network. Jump over there if you want to continue more baseball discussion with Ned Colletti. I will jump back with them in a few minutes, but tomorrow's the NBA draft, and we have to get we got to get the opinions of the man who is locked on Warrior basketball. Locked on Warrior basketball. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good to see you.
Actually, so the Giants, it's 10 in a row. I mean, the Giants are doing so good. They crept into Locked On Warriors today. That's a incredible rarity, man. So it's 10 in a row, 11 in a row. Like, did they win again?
They won again.
Oh my God.
10 in a row.
Yeah.
10 in a row for the Giants. It's an absolute, it's an amazing thing.
Is Farhan getting the credit? Is it Kapler who's getting the love?
Probably both.
Impressive.
Here's the question for you.
Yeah.
Warriors have the 19th pick. What are they going to do? Now, I'm hearing my good buddy Bill Duffy, I don't want to be a name dropper, but one of the best agents in basketball, lives here in Walnut Creek. He's a friend of mine. And I've been talking to Bill about getting he's got 5 or 6 guys in the draft. One of them is Grady Dick from Kansas. I would love to see the Warriors trade Jonathan Kuminga and get up into the top 10 and get Grady Dick, who I think is a great shooter. But one option at 19 is the Santa Clara sharpshooter, Brandon Podziemski.
Mm-hmm.
And Podziemski is also a terrific shooter. He's a 6'5" combo guard, transferred from Illinois, I believe, to Santa Clara, had a phenomenal year. And on Wednesday's episode of the Brian Windhorse and the Hoop Collective podcast, Jeremy Wu, who's an ESPN draft expert, talked about the teams in the top 20, and a lot of people are projecting Podziemski, who couldn't even get off the bench as a freshman with the Illini, transferred to Santa Clara. His lone year with Santa Clara, the 20-year-old averaged almost 20 a game, 19.9, shot 44% from beyond the arc, and he's got 39-inch vertical. He also is an incredible rebounder who averaged 8.8 rebounds per game, despite being only a 6'5" shooting guard. And he's a really unique talent. There's a lot of talk that Podziemski to the Warriors could happen. The Ringer's Kevin O'Connor ranks him the number 25 prospect on the big board. He called him a knockdown shooter off the catch. a pillowy, soft touch when tossing up teardrop floaters and hook shots. Outstanding rebounder. What do you think? I mean, is Podziemski their pick at 19? Could you see them trading up into the top 10? If so, could they be after Grady Dick? It seems like Mike Dunleavy Jr., the new GM, has emphasized that they want guys who know how to play and they want guys who can shoot the ball. What do you think? What's going to happen tomorrow, Si?
I mean, the latest report is that the Warriors. So Anthony Slater published. He's been on top of it, man. I'm giving him his due because he's one of the few reporters who's legitimately investigating, talking to the right people. And so his latest report came out, I think, late yesterday, that the Jonathan Kuminga rumor by Jonathan Givney of ESPN was like widely overblown, and that the report originated with a team who has a lottery pick, who's reportedly wanted Kuminga for like over a year now. And that team could be the Pacers. No one knows for sure who it is. But that they originated the whole interest in Kuminga, and that the Warriors reportedly, according to Anthony Slater's sources, are saying that they're holding on to Kuminga, that there's no, now in terms of like what they're going to do in the draft, who knows? Like, but my fear is that there's just going to be this complacency, this kind of like just lull in this settling for what they have now, and the belief that, you know, like Kuminga and Moody could improve. And last year was a bit of an anomaly in the cases of Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole. I pray, man, that's not the direction they go. You know, so like I don't know what to believe. There's just so much talk and so much speculation, and just there's a lot of birds chirping, and I kind of just given up in terms of trying to figure out like what they're going to do. I'm just fascinated by what's going to actually happen. Now, if they stick with 19 and get the player you're talking about, this kid from Santa Clara, who I dude, every time I see his name, I'm like, how do you pronounce his last name? Podziemski? What?
I'm not 100% sure. I was told by Bill that he was going to try to get him on my channel. So
Podziemski, whatever it is, Brandon Podziemski of Santa Clara. I'm hearing the same. He's a lefty, right? He's a southpaw who, like you said, man, at 6'5", 205 pounds, he can play.
39-inch vertical, though. He's got almost a 40-inch vertical.
Totally. Look, I would not object to it, man. There's a lot of names out there. Like, I think Frank mentioned, or like he likes Ben Shepherd. The last time I was on your show, he brought his name up.
I like Ben Shepherd a lot too, from Belmont. Very polished player, shooter.
Totally, exactly. He's a senior. He played 4 years. You know, I had a Rafael Barlow, who's a draft expert. I feel like there's very few people you can apply that expert term to. He's one of them. I had him on Locked On Warriors last week. And one name that has been mentioned, but like not seriously, until I had this conversation with Rafael Barlow. And when I heard his logic, I kind of liked it. And he brought up Keegan Murray's twin brother, Chris. And the logic was very sound. It's like, look, what if you get 75% of Keegan Murray in his brother Chris? It's like, for a rookie deal, that's worth it. He can step in right away. He can contribute right away. What he offers as a skill set is pretty much exactly what the Warriors need. He's a role player. So I wouldn't object to that. I mean, you don't get like the super high upside with Chris Murray, but at the same time, it's a safe pick. I know people are talking about Jamie. Is it Jaquez? Junior?
Jaime Jaquez.
Jaime Jaquez. I butchered that. I apologize. So yeah, Jaime Jaquez. I don't know much about him, man. You would know a lot more than me, I'm guessing. I've not done my research on him.
He's a 6'7" small forward, but he shot the ball incredibly well in the pre-draft workouts. And he's a California kid from Southern Cal, and he's just a high intangibles guy. He's played really well for them. As far as he's done a lot of good things at the college level. I think he doesn't have a lot of upside potential, but he knows how to play the game. There's no question.
And he's got like that Christian Brown element to him, right? Where he's just a guy who will win the scrambles for the balls, and he'll out hustle you, which is huge. I mean, that's a grossly underrated intangible that I feel like you always want, and it's always a positive. And then Kristen Peek in her last mock draft, and again, her opinion of all of them out there is the one I respect the most. And she is saying that the Warriors are going to end up with guard Nick Smith Jr. out of Arkansas.
Played for
I don't
Musselman,
know a
yeah.
lot about him. Do you know much about him? I just saw this.
Yeah, he's a combo guard. I don't love him. I think, and also I don't think he'll be there. I think he's going to be off the board by that point.
Gotcha.
I mean, here's my thought on it. There's certain guys that I really love in this draft, and a lot of them are going to be there for Golden State. Jordan Hawkins from Connecticut is maybe the best off the screen shooter in the entire draft. Just perfect form. He's a little thin, but he's a 6'5" guy who could immediately play. Chris Murray is a lefty, Keegan Murray, and not quite as physical, but maybe a better looking shot.
Okay.
Then there's Podziemski, who's got a lot of upside potential, kind of a combo guard, 6'5", from Santa Clara. Really like him. Then there's a guy named Omax Prosper. His name's Olivier Maxence Prosper, and he dominated in Chicago. He's a 6'8", 220-pound combo forward, probably more of a power forward, but he's a freaky athlete, dunker, runner, kind of maybe a Sean Marion type. Really like him. Really like Ben Shepherd from Belmont, who's a 6'6" guard, really good shooter. He showed in Chicago that he's very polished, very ready to play. But then the guys who are my favorite players, I mean, I like a little bit more swing for the fences. And Leonard Miller, the G League kid who's a 6'10" small forward, but he's got handle at 6'10".
He's long.
He's long and he's super athletic.
Yeah.
I think he might be one of the best players in this draft in 5 years. And then Trace Jackson Davis, who's Dale Davis's kid, does a lot of things that Draymond Green does. I mean, he can block shots, he can pass. He averaged 20 a game in the Big Ten. He's a phenomenal rebounder. He's just not a perimeter shooter, but he is a great passer at 6'9", 250. And he's really a small ball 5. And he could be a replacement for Draymond eventually. I love Trace Jackson Davis. But my two favorite players in this,
and Damon Bruce likes him a lot too, right? And Damon watches his Hoosiers intently. I remember,
he loves him,
bringing up his name.
But my two favorite players in the entire draft, and are Sidi Sissoko, who's a French kid who played in the G League this year, and he used to play point guard, and now he's 6'7", 225 pounds, but he has legitimate point guard skills. I mean, this guy is a point guard at 6'7", 225, and he is a very, very good athlete. I
see the highlights. He looks good.
I cannot pass on Sidi Sissoko. I really love Sidi Sissoko. The other guy I really love, I do love Amari Bailey, who I think is a point guard, and a lot of people think he's a combo, but he's a Chicago kid, super tough, played at UCLA, hit the big shot against Gonzaga to beat them, except Gonzaga then hit the game winner a second later and beat UCLA in the Elite Eight. Amari Bailey would be a phenomenal player for the Warriors. And then, to me, the sleeper of this draft is Tristan Vukovic,
right?
Who is 7 feet tall, and he doesn't play any defense, but you're talking about one of the most polished shooters. I mean, this guy's got a Klay Thompson kind of shot. And he's 7 feet tall, and he's kind of a little bit tougher than you think. And he may be a little bit of a developmental guy, but man, I mean, Vukovic, 7-footer. I mean, who's the best 7-foot shooter in the game today? Jokic?
Well, Jokic, yeah, clearly. I think clearly, yeah. Or Durant. I mean, Durant's 7 feet, but
this guy reminds me a lot of Durant. He reminds me a lot of Durant. Now, Durant is Durant, but this guy has a lot of what Durant, he could do what Durant does in that he can rise up over you in the mid-range, and with a hand in his face, his shot is still so pure, he can knock it down. That guy, I don't know. I mean, I would try to get us another pick and get Vukovic somehow.
Well, I was going to say, it's a disappointment they don't have a second-round pick in this year's draft, because a lot of people are considering this draft to be one where, like, the next 2 years after this, you're going to see a drastic drop-off in terms of talent. And this is a good draft. This is a deep draft. And for them not have a second round pick, because all those names you mentioned in the latter part of what you were discussing are likely going to fall to the second round. Dale Davis, first of all, you and I are old enough to remember him, watching him play. He was a badass individual as an NBA player. Like the Pacers, like went deep multiple times, largely because they had him in the front court duking it out. So if this kid is anything like him, sign me up. I mean, obviously you have no idea, but that progeny is impressive, man. I'm stoked on that. So, by the way, how did today go with Damon Bruce, man? Because Damon posted this like kind of a inflammatory tweet directed at Dub Nation and anyone who just wants change for the Warriors. Did you get into it at all?
Yeah, I mean, I love Damon as a
Same.
friend and as a brother.
Same.
I mean, he's my producer from years ago. We've been friends for a long time. I think he's nuts when it comes. I mean, you cannot bring this whole group back and just be like, it's going to be better. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. And you know what? The fans are too smart. The Warrior fans aren't buying this. You've got Sacramento growing up. You've got other teams in the West growing up that actually have young ascending players. You think Curry and Thompson and Green are getting better? They're not. I mean, come on, man. I mean, it is true insanity to think that the Warriors can run it back. If you tell me the Warriors are running it back, I would say the Warriors are fucking done.
Agreed.
They're done if they run it back.
I'm gonna get Damon on the show soon just because I want to try to get into it with him in terms of the logic. But yeah, I saw that and I'm like, what do you expect is gonna happen? Like just some magically in this fantasy, like completely detached from reality world? You think Klay Thompson, an aging 34-year-old Klay, is gonna improve after that drop off?
Well, and it's like, you know, it's like, here's the thing, dude. I mean, I'm a real Warrior fan. I'm an OG.
Same.
I'm an OG Warrior fan.
Same.
I suffered through all those losing years. I understand I understand the people at 95.7 The Game. I understand. I'll be on there, by the way, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. I understand the love for this era, but acknowledge when it's fucking over, man. And it's over. You're not getting better. Steph is not getting better. Klay Thompson, this idea that Klay Thompson one more year after injury is a year older.
Yeah, he's
and
older.
Klay Thompson is not the kind of guy that can accept the fact that he's not the player that he used to be. So it's going to be this gigantic, I only want Klay to take less if he is happy taking less. If he's not happy taking less, I want him the fuck out of here.
Good point.
And Draymond Green is essential. I would bring Draymond Green back. I agree with Steve Kerr that if Draymond goes, they have no chance to win the title. Kerr is on record as saying that. But this love affair with this era, it's like, it's sad, dude. I feel like Warrior fans right now and Warrior media right now, it's like they never had a girlfriend. Then they finally got a girlfriend, and now she's leaving them. And they can't even they can't picture life without her. And it's just like, no, don't go. I'll never get laid again. It's like, you know what? Have a little confidence. If that was your buddy, you'd grab him by the collar and you'd shake him and be like, dude, they're like buses. There'll be another one along in 20 goddamn minutes. You know what I mean? It's like, relax, Warrior fan. These are not the only players in the world. And this idea that, well, Kerr doesn't like young players. No, Kerr doesn't like undeveloped young players and skill and young players who have, hops, but no game, and young players who have, they're springy and young, but have no idea how to play. That's why when they asked Mike Dunleavy, what are you looking for? He said, I'm looking for guys who know how to play basketball. And that was a direct slap at Poole and Kuminga. Now, what are you hearing about Poole? Are this idea that, you know what, Draymond, bringing him back. What are you going to do with Kuminga? Bringing him back. What are you doing with Poole? Bringing him back. What are you doing? I mean, what? Really?
Yeah,
it's pathetic.
That's the public. That's the public message that they're sending. I am hearing, not like, at least from one person privately, that they are trying to make a big move, like a big splash. I don't know what that is. It was a relief to hear that, because you're right. Every public message is, we're fine. We're fine the way we are. Like,
no, you're
like
not.
They're not, and they're not. No, totally agree. They're not even close. So,
it's sad. It's like, guys, stop living in denial.
Yeah.
You didn't go out in the finals. You didn't go out in the conference finals.
Yeah, exactly.
You lost to the Lakers in the second round. Stop pretending you're going to be better. Clay's not better. Draymond's
No.
not better. Steph's not better. They're all getting worse.
And even
Worse.
if for the sake of argument, even if they are better, just for the sake of argument, they're still not good enough to overcome the Nuggets. You're not even close.
Right.
Like,
You're not good
you got to
enough.
have an answer for that. Yeah. So if they run it back, that's weird. I'm not going to understand that at all.
But what are you hearing about Poole? I mean, what's the market for Poole? Is there a market for him?
Well, there's some interest, which is good news. The bad news is his value is not high. There's also this belief, and this could be, one of these divides within the organization. Some people there like him. Some people there actually do want to keep him. Dunleavy Jr. was very specific in what he was saying about Poole. Like he said, I think, we have him under a 4-year contract. When we expect him to fill that, and it's just crazy. So I feel like you're taking a huge risk rolling with Poole, because if he has value now, and he does have some, again, there's some teams out there that are interested, that could just diminish and go away if he has a bad start. And that's very possible. Like, some players just need a new look, a new culture, a breath of fresh air. And I that's how I see Poole, man. I don't know if keeping him is gonna just magically fix things, given the way things went last year. So yes, there is some value. If you keep him, you run the risk of that whatever value there is left diminishing, and then you're stuck with them. I mean, they owe him 120 something million, over the next 4 years. It's a horrible contract. If you can get out of it, get out of it. It's fascinating what they're gonna do.
This is what I would do. I would trade Poole for lesser players with expiring deals and draft picks, and then take 2 or 3 stabs at the draft. See if you can make something happen. I mean, they're so deathly afraid to make evaluations. This is how you wound up with Draymond, Clay, and Steph Curry. Is you went into the draft, found skilled players that other people didn't see as players, and you drafted them. Why is it so hard to understand? It's like, there's so many people that are so fucking dumb. I can't stomach it anymore. I really can't. I mean, it's just like, we have to Kerr won't play young players and we can't use the draft. If you can't improve in the draft, then sell the team.
Yeah.
Because there is no free agency and you have nothing to trade that you're willing to trade. So just admit that it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're that lame that you can't figure out who the good players in the draft are, then you don't have the right general manager.
No, I'm 100% with you. But I don't even know. You got me curious about Larry Harris, for example, Dell's son. He's been with the team for a number of years. I think he still has the assistant GM title, and you got me curious because I started asking around. I'm like, what is he doing now? And why did we never hear from him? And all I heard back was that, everyone else I brought it up to was like, yeah, good point. And I guess his role got diminished. He's more of a scout now. I don't know what they're doing, man. I wasn't exactly inspired by Mike Dunleavy Jr. in that press conference. I do feel like sometimes when you're in this leadership position with a sports team, part of your job is to say the right things. And I didn't hear any of it. So I'm with you in terms of the frustration. I'm absolutely with you. If we see just inaction this offseason and this just rolling with what they have now, the only way I could be comfortable with it is if they get some size through veteran minimum contracts, and then Kuminga and Moody, we see them blossom into the players that you hope they turn into. If that happens, there is some hope. I take some solace in that, but that's predicated on, the philosophy of Kerr just magically playing these kids when last year he treated them like shit. So it's crazy. I agree with you. I don't feel great about anything right now. I hope that the Warriors do something soon to make me feel good about them, because right now I don't.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Breitler's like, calm down, Larry. 4 rings in 8 years. Yeah, why'd you get 4 rings? And there's people going, hey, Joe Lacob this. Joe Lacob bought the team. He had Steph Curry. Joe Lacob did not pick Steph Curry. Joe Lacob's kids did not pick Steph Curry. Mike Dunleavy did not pick Steph Curry. Bob Myers did not pick Steph Curry. Right. Joe Lacob lucked out
with Nelly.
I mean, let's call this for what it is. Joe built the arena. Joe talked a big game and he delivered, but I mean, just because it would be like if Jed York bought the Niners and they had Joe Montana and then they went on and won 4 rings. Are you going to sit there and go, Jed led us to 4 rings? No, Montana led you to 4 rings. Joe Lacob did not lead you to 4 rings. Steph Curry led you to 4 rings. Who drafted Steph Curry? Don Nelson, Larry Riley. They were basketball personnel geniuses. Joe is an owner, but he's not a basketball personnel genius.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Neither are his kids. And
You're
it's just like this
right.
idea that, defer to Joe because Joe got us all these rings. No, Joe did not get you all the rings. Curry got you all the rings. It's maddening because it's like people want to give Joe credit for stuff that he didn't deserve. He doesn't deserve that credit. He deserves credit for the arena. He does not deserve credit for all those championships.
Well,
he was lucky to have those championships.
No, you're right. And just to add to that, because I really don't like when people say be grateful for the 4 titles. Of course, we're grateful for it, but
life goes on, dude.
But if you're a visionary, if you're someone who actually wants and thirsts and pursues greatness and greater things, sometimes you can get more than that. Like when I look at this Warriors team, I see a team that, yes, they won 4 titles in 9 years. They should have won 5. They could have even won 6. I absolutely recognize how hard it is to win world championships, which is why it's that frustrating. Like this last year was frustrating to me. Like they had a chance to repeat as world champions, to get a 5th title in 9 years. How often does that possibility present itself to you? And what did the team do? They decided not to build depth. They decided not to even do simple things like bring Damian Lee and JTA back. They decided not to get bigs. They went with like this. I'm calling the Warriors hobbits right now because the NBA average for an NBA player in terms of height is 6'7", and the Warriors are below that. I mean, you're a very small team. You need height. You need size in the NBA. So I'm 100% with you. I don't think it's unrealistic to want more. This is a very small window for Stephen Curry. Take advantage of it, man. Don't squander these opportunities. I'm totally with you.
Gilbert Arbala, but who got KD, Larry? Yeah, answer that question, Gilbert. Who got KD? KD came. But KD came here because Myers was smooth and the Warriors were set up to win titles, and he's trying to win titles. That's what brought KD here. Not Joe, not Kirk, not Kent, not Mike Dunleavy. Nobody who's here right now is responsible for the titles. That's in a personnel evaluation mode. Nobody. So the Warriors fans are headed towards despair because the bottom line is the brain trust that put this thing together is not here. Nobody from that brain trust except for Larry Harris is here. And they didn't make Larry Harris the GM.
It's weird.
So yeah. It's like they may be good, but it's a dice roll, baby. It's nothing. This whole like have faith. You should have more faith in the Giants right now. At least they drafted Casey Schmidt. They drafted Patrick Bailey. The guys who are running the Giants are drafting the players that are now making up this new regime, this new run. I have much more confidence in the Niners and much more confidence in the Giants than I do in the Warriors. Why? Because the Warriors had recent parades. The guys who built those teams are not here. They're not here. So I mean that's really
You're
right. And personally, I don't like Jordan Poole. I think Jordan Poole is totally forgettable, way overpaid. I mean, think about it. Jordan Poole had good value until they gave him that ridiculous contract.
Yeah,
they devalued him.
And he still has value. Like we don't know if he's going to be better next year. I mean, that's a huge assumption to say that he's going to be improved. We don't know that. I mean, there's a very strong possibility he's going to come out looking worse. He's going to come out looking like the playoff version we saw. Charles Barkley, look, most of the time when he talks basketball, you're entertained. He's funny. Obviously, he played the game. He knows the game, but you can't take a lot of what he says seriously. But I do take one thing he said very recently seriously about Jordan Poole, because he took an interest in the Warriors youngsters during that Kings series, because Barkley attributed the Warriors turning that series around to that Game 3 performance when we saw Kuminga, we saw Moody. He lumped in Jermichael Green with the youngsters, which wasn't very accurate, but whatever. But then he started talking about Jordan Poole, and he forgot the player that Jordan Poole reminded him of from the 90s, but he said they both were very similar. Two players that have the potential to be great, have the talent, but in both cases, they're forcing their shots. They take bad shots very regularly, instead of passing it up for better shots, taking easy shots. And if Jordan Poole doesn't shake that, he's never going to be a great player. Like we saw glimpses of it, but last year there was a major regression, man. And like his little foot shuffle right before he's about to take a really difficult three, these 30 footers he's taking, so unnecessary, man. And he does this a lot. So if he doesn't change that part of his game, he's never going to get better. And then you're stuck with him. Because you're stuck with him. Like, who's going to want that contract, man? Like, I would move him personally. I would.
Well, and their chemistry was awful this year, awful. And it's like, wait, you're gonna, you really want more of that chemistry? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm really, really worried about the Warriors tomorrow and where they're going. I really, fan side, it has 3 trades. Here's the other thing that's frustrating. All these Warrior trade rumors suck. I wouldn't.
What do you see? What do you see?
Here's one. Here, listen to this one. This is just awful.
All right.
Jonathan Kuminga and Ryan Rollins to the Pacers for, wait for it, TJ McConnell, a 2025 first round pick that will be top 5 protected, and a 2024 second round pick. What? Why?
Why would you do that if you're Golden State? Is it saving money? That's their logic.
What the heck's that?
That's the only thing. That's the only reason. Yeah, you wouldn't do that otherwise.
Awful trade. Here's another trade. Mavericks trade with the Mavericks. Draymond Green to the Mavericks. The Warriors get Christian Wood, Jaden Hardy, and a 2025 first round pick swap. Why? Why would you do that?
I
hate that trade.
I don't hate it. I mean,
I like Christian Wood. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. You're not winning anything without Draymond.
You're right. That's true.
So,
that's true. You're right.
So what are you doing? Here's the thing. Do you want Draymond back? I want Draymond back.
Who proposed that, by the way? Well, of course. It's just like you said. If Draymond leaves, which it's pretty weird that that's a possibility. That's a very real possibility right now. It's weird. If he leaves, the championship window is closed. It's over. I mean, then you suddenly got to look at this whole thing as, how do we transition without being an awful basketball team, right? Then you got to start thinking like that. How do we get to the next phase, of our this whole story? They're done. They're done. I mean, they could be a playoff team, but they're not a championship team. That's over. 36-year-old Steph carrying this team by himself? Hell no.
What do you think of this one? This trade I would make, and I'm sure there's a lot of Warrior fans, because when I brought up this guy's name, it was like, what? It was like, you're ridiculous. People hate this guy, but at least this guy's young. Jordan Poole and Gary Payton to the Nets for Ben Simmons, a 2027 first, a 2023 second, and a 2027 second.
I don't hate it.
I'd make that trade. Would you take
a flyer on Ben Simmons? I mean, I guess that's
would.
You would.
I would. I'd rather trade Klay Thompson to do it than Jordan Poole, but yeah, I would do it.
Yeah, I would. I mean, why not? I mean, you're getting a player who's like 6'10". I feel like if Ben Simmons cannot be salvaged with Golden State, there's nowhere he can ever turn his career around. So I don't hate it. You're basically giving up Poole, and then Gary Payton. I mean, I don't like the idea of losing Gary Payton II for that.
I don't either, but you're getting a bigger defender, younger and healthier.
I do it. You're getting picks back. I mean, if you get the best case version of Ben Simmons, you're winning a title. I mean, this is someone who's made all NBA teams. So, I mean, look, the odds of getting that version back are slim. But again, if anyone's going to do it, it'd be the Warriors. So, yeah.
How about
Sign me
Jordan Poole to Orlando for Gary Harris and a pick?
Mm,
That'd
I
be
don't
a
know,
damn good pick.
Yeah. Gary
Harris is
he's all
older,
right.
and
He's all right.
he makes it. He's 29. I don't know.
He's all right.
I don't love that.
Yeah, I don't love it. It's one of those you just be shrugging. You know, you're like,
I mean,
yeah.
this is the problem with Golden State is that they don't have a general manager. They're you know. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that I trust until they blow it. I don't trust until I believe it. You know what I mean? That's who I am. This guy says Kerr would never play Simmons. What? Why?
I mean, this is
why? Why would he never play Simmons?
I don't know.
What do
I
you
hate
think
the
of
fact
Steph
that-
playing off the ball and let it? What do you think of this as a plan? Trading for Simmons because he's obviously at a low value, maybe moving Clay, and then see if you can acquire a couple more shooters and let Steph play off the ball and put the ball in Simmons' hands. And then you have a bunch of shooters and Ben Simmons. I'd much rather watch that than what they got now.
Oh, hell yeah. And again, Ben Simmons, if you get Ben Simmons' best case scenario, that sounds like a low risk, very high reward kind of transaction. But, the odds are slim, but you never know. You never know.
Nobody likes Ben Simmons. People are, no, Ben Simmons.
Nobody
What, I mean, it's amazing. People only see things as they are in the present, and they can't ever see anybody getting any better. So it's like, oh, you know what? Ben Simmons isn't good right now. Okay, so wait, he's first of all, the guy's been an all-star, right? I mean, it's not like he's no. People act like he's a total nothing bird. I mean, the guy was an all-star.
Makes you wonder how Sean Marks is still a GM. Like, I remember a few years ago, people used to rave about this guy as being some savant, some genius in the front office. I never understood it then, and now I'm like, how is this guy still in control?
How about Chris Paul? What about Chris Paul?
The weird thing about Chris Paul is he's really the only player that's been linked to the Warriors so far. By a fairly reputable, like I don't know what you call the Wojs and the Shams of the world. Like they're your primary. I don't know what you call them. What's their label? What would you call them? I'm
NBA insiders or whatever.
I guess your top.
I mean, would you trade Poole for Paul and a pick if I could get their lottery pick? I would do it.
No, I would not. To me, like the only way Chris Paul sounds feasible, sounds like an upside is if you get him for nothing, meaning he's available, you get him on a vet min deal. Like I would not give up a single asset for Chris Paul. You're completely wasting money. He's not going to be a difference maker. He's going to be 39 this year. I mean, you have durability issues. Like he's not a player who fits well in an offense that runs a motion. I mean, this is someone who likes to plod, bring the ball up. He's a pick and roll type player. He's a high usage type player. Like this is not someone whose style meshes well with the Warriors. So if you're going to bring him in and you're going to take a flyer, it's either veteran minimum or bust for me. Now, I don't know how Mike Dunleavy Jr. feels, but I would not give up anything more than a veteran minimum contract for Chris Paul.
What about trading down? The Pacers have 26, 29, 32, 55. Charlotte has 27, 34, 39, 41. What do you think of trading back and taking 3 or 4 guys that you like?
I totally do that. I mean, look, Larry, you just mentioned like a list of names.
Yeah,
who could
I like
fit.
them all.
And if you like them all, and not to mention, I mean, the odds of scoring by getting 3 of them, versus just one, I mean, is exponentially higher. And if you score on just one of these guys, you're stoked. I would absolutely do that, of course. I mean, who's the first team? The Pacers that had the gluttony of picks.
Yeah, Pacers have a bunch of picks.
I mean, look, the Nuggets just the Nuggets just won a championship, and they're fully cognizant of how deep this draft is and how thin the next 2 drafts are because they made trades.
They made a great trade.
Yeah, to get picks in this year's draft for that reason. So I think the Nuggets right now, they have 32.
29 and 32, and they traded future picks to get them. And they're going to wind up getting 2 rotation players at 29 and 32.
Exactly.
And they also have 37. They've got 3 picks in the top 37.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If I were the Warriors in an ideal world, I would make a deal sending Klay Thompson to Brooklyn because I don't think Klay can handle his twilight years here. He'll always, and I don't want an unhappy Klay Thompson here.
Right.
And I would take Ben Simmons. I'd give him 19, and I would take their 2 picks, 21 and 22, and maybe they're second, and see if, even I would even add a piece to that deal, and then I would just take 3 prospects that I really like and have Ben Simmons and move off of Klay Thompson. But I don't know. It's going to take balls, man. They're going to, because you know what? The path of least resistance is to bring everybody back. If you bring everybody back, there'll still be dumb Warrior fans who don't know basketball, who will just sit there and go, "Oh, you know what? They're maybe getting better. They may be getting better," and then they'll only realize in a year or two that the thing ended. But
you're absolutely right, and we've seen this with other teams and other sports on so many occasions where it's just the easier, lazier. It's so unimaginative. But they'll still fill the arena. They'll still make their money, and they'll make the playoffs because you have Stephen Curry and you have just enough talent. But the days of winning titles are done. And it's very disappointing because I do believe that if you are aggressive and you take some risks this offseason, you could still win a title next year.
Yes, you could.
But having the attitude of, well, we have people who have been there and done that, and why mess with that? It's like, no, last season was a more than enough of a sample size to see that this does not work. And not to mention all the other teams are getting better. The Suns, look, people for some reason, like really, I saw a lot of people criticizing the Bradley Beal trade the Suns pulled off. The Suns gave up nothing, and they got back a perennial all-star still in his prime. I don't know how you criticize that. The Suns are going to be a damn good team next year. They're going to.
He's got an ugly contract. He's got an ugly contract, but who cares?
He does, but again, at least they're rolling dice. They're in it.
I'll tell you the other thing that's hard to stomach is that the people who say the Warriors ought to trade their pick or trade out of the draft altogether, then you realize when you talk to them for 2 minutes, they don't know these players in the draft. That's why they're saying trade everything for one guy, because they don't know the players.
That's fair.
It's easy to say trade the pick and go for a veteran if you don't know, if you have no conviction on any of these young players because you don't watch college basketball. I mean, I watch college basketball. I follow the draft. I know the agents. I talk to people. I've watched all these guys in round 2. And I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at this draft and I will guarantee you that after the top 3 guys of Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, that next group of 8 or 9 guys, the Thompson twins, Anthony Black, Jarris Walker, Kaysen Wallace, Taylor Hendricks, Cam Whitmore, the other guy, Buffkin, Keontae George, there is going to be a bunch of busts in there. They're all they're all freshmen. They're all like, oh, let's project into the future. They're all kind of jumping jack freshmen. I would say there'll be 5 busts out of that 7 or 8 picks.
That's fair. There always is. And there's a few names in there. Like, it's crazy how much the value of these picks goes up and down like a stock market. Is fascinating because Derek Lively, no one was talking about him 3 weeks ago. In the latest mock drafts, you're seeing him, move up to the top 10. Maybe that might be too high, or maybe he is that good. Like, I've seen Kobe Buffkin falling to the Warriors, and now I'm seeing him, in some mock drafts cracking the top 10. Same with Jalen Hood Schifino. That's who I picked in my mock draft for Locked On because he was available at 19. I don't think there's a chance in hell he's going to make it at 19 now. It's crazy. Who knows who's going to fall to him? Like Jordan Hawkins. He's
love
just
him.
Up and down. I know, yeah.
I love him. Very
for shooting, right? Is that what you're?
Yeah, he's a 6'5" 2 guard who is the best player in this entire draft.
Yeah,
coming off a screen and knocking down a shot.
Yeah, and
he's a little thin, but I mean, Steve Kerr would play that guy a ton. I mean,
there you go. Exactly. He might fall to the Warriors. Like, he actually might. If that happens, I mean, I think they're stoked. So
I think I would definitely take him. How about Paul George for Klay? Would you do that?
I would do it. I don't think there's a chance in hell the Warriors would do it.
Why wouldn't the Warriors do that?
Because of
is it sentimentality? Is it more sentiment? Enough of the sentimentality.
Yeah, that's all about philosophy, right? It's about like moving on from a player a year too soon versus a year too late. I'm always going to be on the side of year too soon. Yeah, to me now is the time you move Clay. As much as I love him, this isn't a decision I would ever do lightly. His value is immense. If he's willing to take a pay cut, different story. But if he wants 30 to 40 million, I also don't know if the Clippers would want him. I don't know what his value would be to other teams. Like I saw one weird proposal, not based in reality, purely just for fun. But I saw a trade that sent Clay to the Raptors, and you get like Siakam back, and there's a few other things. I don't know if the Raptors would do that. Like I don't know what Clay's value is to other teams.
I can't think that any team besides the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Nets would really want Clay. Maybe Boston. I don't think too many teams want Clay. But I mean, my big issue with Clay, I love Clay. I was there for the 37-point game, or 37-point quarter, I should say. It's one of the greatest moments of my viewing life. But let's be honest. Let's be honest about this. This guy had the perfect personality on the way up to make the chemistry perfect. But now he's got the worst personality going forward because he's not willing to take a step back. He's not willing to admit that he's not the same player. Yeah. He's going to be hell on earth because he's constantly going to shoot. He shot you out of the playoffs. He doesn't play defense the same way.
That's reality. Yeah.
He thinks he's a better player than he is. And guess what? His head is not going to be in the right place at 30 at the dollar figure that he should be at. The
Larry,
dollar
what's
figure,
your He's
got to make 20. And guess what? If he takes 20, he's going to walk around while making 20, despite the fact he's got 150 million in the bank, and he's going to be pissed off. I don't want a pissed off Klay Thompson.
That's fair. I can't argue with you on that. I can't, because you're right. You want your players to be happy. That fits into the chemistry.
There's a reason that people don't hire 50-year-old people. Because 50-year-old people used to make $200,000, and now they're unhappy making 75. But guess what? You give that same 75 to a 25-year-old person, and they're walking around going, "Hey, man, I'm making 75. Things are good." You don't want a guy going at the water cooler. Yeah, I'm making 75, but I should be making double this. That's Klay Thompson.
Yep.
Get away from that. I mean, run from that.
That's fair. So Larry, there's a player who's actually very available, and for some reason, no one is linking him to the Warriors. I don't hear much excitement about any proposals of him going to the Warriors, but he's available, and that's Zion Williamson, who is a talk about transcendent. He fits that label perfectly, man. He just has to be healthy, and he has to have a higher maturity level. But I would make a move for him if he's available. What are your thoughts on Zion Williamson?
I won't trade for Zion Williamson because Zion Williamson is too big for his body, and the schedule has 82 games plus preseason and playoffs. The game, it's 120 game commitment, and he can only do it if he's about 270, and he hasn't been 270 since like the 7th grade. So no, I can't have Zion. He's too heavy.
Celebrini and staff like overseeing things and managing his weight and his diet. Like you just don't have enough faith in the Warriors to keep him healthy.
I don't have enough faith. First of all, what he really needs is to do what LeBron did and figure out a way to cut the muscle mass.
Yeah.
It's not fat. Good. It's not fat. I mean, he's got some fat on him, but
it's mass.
It's mass muscle that's natural. So he's got to do whatever he can do. And how do you get rid of your muscle mass? I mean, it's just a very challenging thing. I'd rather have the other guy on that team that makes too much money, the skinny guy. What's the skinny guy?
Brandon Ingram.
Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, I don't know if he's available, but
I'll tell you what makes sense to me, and you tell me if you like this.
All right.
Jordan Poole people are going to hate this one too. I think all the trades involving Jordan Poole that really are good trades would piss people off.
Okay, like what?
Okay, how about Jordan Poole to Utah for Colin Sexton, Talen Horton Tucker, and a pick? And here's why. Because those guys are Horton Tucker's expiring, or maybe you can get Olynyk or Jordan Clarkson. You get expiring deals and a pick. You get out from underneath the money. You get your salary cap back in order. You get Joe away from his $500 million potential, payout with the payroll and the repeater tax bonus, penalties, and you get yourself away from Poole, and you take whatever pick. Where do they pick? They pick
19. Oh, the Jazz, you mean?
No, they pick 9. I'll take the 9th pick and those donkeys and then just let those guys walk and take Grady Dick or Lively or somebody like that and get rid of that contract. Just admit that contract's a nightmare and get out from underneath that contract.
It is.
That's one. The other one I would do is, what do you think of this trade? Jordan Poole to Dallas and take back like Tim Hardaway, and
he's
like Reggie.
I don't think Hardaway's available. I would love Hardaway, but
or like take back like Reggie Bullock and Davis Bertans. Davis Bertans, Reggie Bullock, and their lottery pick, and then take Grady Dick.
I wouldn't hate it.
Then you at least have a shooter in Bertans, a shooter in Bullock. You add Grady Dick. Now you've got 3 really good shooters, and you're getting rid of Poole's contract. That's the deal I would probably try to.
Hey, by the way, if you care about Ned Colletti, I'm seeing chat messages that concern me. I just don't want your relationship with Ned to ever be in danger.
Why?
Because we're talking Warriors hoops. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Why? What are people saying? I don't see it.
Senior softball games is saying you better save Ned over on Danny's channel. He's losing it with Danny.
Okay. So let me jump over there because I don't want to piss anybody off.
Dude,
we'll talk to you soon,
I'll come back on with you soon, man. I can't believe the draft is tomorrow, though. It's crazy. I'm with you, man. The Warriors need to do something, and seriously, I hope they do. That's
on
all
that note, brother. We'll maybe tomorrow after the draft.
Love it. Let's do it, man. I gotta. Yeah, let's do it. We'll figure it out. I'll be back on
later, man.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you ask.